Hey, it's Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and it's Tuesday. It's October 21st. This will be our chart lesson for the day. And we pushed higher today. I think we closed higher. Let me just see if we closed higher or not. It's not going to be by much. 73, 75. No, we actually closed down about three ticks, almost a point. So, but you can see we're in this big range. We did make a new high. Are higher than previous day, I should say. It's not a new high. We're not quite, but you can see there's resistance up here. But we're still pushing higher. This is still a trend bar. It's trending higher. So just not a lot of movement today. It was obviously definitely a range day, and we kind of closed in the middle of the range as well. So it's just a typical range type day. Actually, it looks like a little consolidation after two big days up. We'll see what happens tomorrow. You can see everything's turning back up. We're having a hard time getting through that midline of this long-term trend channel. So if we ever push through there, I would think we're going to probably run and make a new high, but didn't do it today. This just looks like, I mean, that's a big move there in 2 days. So just like we had this big move down, we consolidated a little. Now we've had a big move up over 2 days, over 200 points. So not unusual for us to consolidate even if we're going higher. Now we could turn back down, don't get me wrong, but I think within a few days we're going to make a new high here. Just the way the chart looks. No, don't bank on that. That's just a good guess based on what we're seeing on the chart. It looks like we're testing these highs again. And one or two things will happen. Either we'll test it and fail and turn back down, or we'll test it and push through and probably go higher. So we'll see which one actually transpires, but that's where we stand as of now. So let's flip over to the 2000 tick chart. We'll take a look at it. We'll go through the trades. A lot of green ones, not a lot of blue or red, but a lot of green ones today. Um, we had a lot of new range type lows that were not higher lows, and we never got the higher lows, so we didn't get the blue or red trades on those, but we got a lot of the green ones. So but let's flip over there. We'll go through the trades, and we'll wrap this day up. Okay, here's our 2000 tick chart. You can see we mostly had a range. We spent most of, here's our pivot point or our midpoint, but we spent most of the day pivoting, or most of the afternoon, late morning through afternoon, pivoting off of this close from yesterday. You can see we played both sides of that pretty regularly until the big sell-off uh, just after 2:30, and then we took about half of that back before the market actually closed. So, but we're just in a range day here. We had a pretty good move up here for a little bit, then took most of that all back again. I mean, these days are a little harder to play. But the thing is, these trends within the range, some of them are big enough to play, and you can play the trend. So anyway, it is what it is. You see a lot of green ones in here today on these failed break lower, but that's really the only thing we had for the most part. So, um, yeah, it is what it is. So, but 7 o'clock came right in here somewhere. I think it was this bar. Well, I thought it was one of these bars. Yeah, it was this very first one here. And then we're just chopping sideways. There's a lower high here. We do have a break and a new high, and this is a range day. Um, but there's not enough room to get out there. Like I said, on range days, a lot of times you don't worry too much about the EMA, but you see how we tried to bounce there. It wasn't enough to stop you out. But I mean, it's another one you could argue to be green, but there's a reverse or a failure here, I should say, but that's not going to fool many people. Um, this is not a very good signal bar. It is a second entry, but it's just not going to fool a lot of people. And you see it would have worked, but it doesn't go far, and then you get another two-legged correction. So it's just not one I think you want to. When we've bounced there 1, 2, 3, and then couldn't get through on the fourth attempt, we end up pushing on through, but we didn't on that bar. So I think you just have to skip that. You want this to set up on the other side of the EMA. Then maybe you take it as a failure. But I don't like it the way it sets up. If you didn't enter here, then don't enter this one. And prices, you just get two legs down and then it turns up, but no chance to go long there. You got a nice little trend that starts up and you quickly get a break and a drop down. You could argue there's a couple of swings, but I don't see three trend bars here. We're just working sideways, so I treated this as a failed break lower. Um, I like this one just because you're expecting a new high on this. The problem is you could be expecting a new low here as well. Um, it's just we actually broke lower below this little two bar matching low and failed quickly and turned up. So for that reason, I like this one. It's probably going to run up and make a new high here. And as long as you got plenty of room, I like that one. You could argue maybe for that to be green, but I like that one in real time. And so there it is. And of course, we do run up, make a new high. We actually get a couple of legs up and we turn down. I don't think you want to go short with this, with all these sideways and no bodied bars. And you see it takes a minute to drop down. We do get what looks like a reversal, but it's just not where you're looking for one. We're too close to the lows, and you see it run straight to the lows and bounces. So I don't think you want to trade that as a failure or reversal or anything like that. This is just a first entry, but this is the signal bar. You do get a close outside the new high. If you'd had a big bearish bar, I'd probably tell you to go short right there, but you don't get that. Runs down, then you get a break, and again, you don't want to go short here. I didn't draw the trend channel. I'm going to draw it because somebody will ask about it probably. But yeah, no, you don't want to go short into that support because it's probably going to fail. You might get a scalp out of it, but I wouldn't risk it. Just not a very good setup. Of course, you get two legs down and a second entry long on a failed breakout. I really like this trade again. It's prices make a new low, so you probably want to wait on the higher low. But if you took that, I wouldn't blame you at all because I liked it in real time. And I like this one too, but it's right into the support resistance and it could turn back down there and make another leg similar to this one. So, with it just going sideways and no trend there, I don't think it really looks like a trap. We do get a failure here that you might trade, but again, I think you need a second entry, and that doesn't come till here. Now you're going long into a double top, so I didn't like it. But notice there is a new swing low here. It's lower than that one. So you could argue there's a failure here, and this thing breaks lower first, and that's what kind of traps people. Look at that. Look what happens here. You get that lower high, but if people aren't paying attention to that possible trend line working up through there, and it's probably a little flatter than that. It's probably more like that right there. And this is probably more like so. And it bounces right off of it. You get that one tick lower and it reverses and goes right out the other side. That's what traps people. And this is where you would expect a possible reversal trap. So I like going long there. Excuse me. I'm sorry, my throat's a little scratchy today, but I like going long there. And that's a nice run there. You're probably going to get a runner and get a nice run on that. And then it just turns straight down. But you can't go short really. Because you got a trend line here. This is a spike and channel up really. And you get a reversal here, but it's not where you're looking for one because there's just not much room back down here. I think you wait. And notice we're running along here sideways, no rejection, so no reason to go long. Somebody might say, well, there's a higher low there, but look at that. That's not rejection. There's several of the no bodied bars in there. Just sit tight because you're apt to get trapped like this right here. And this closes back inside, so I like it a little more. It's not, I don't think you can quite argue this is blue yet, but it's close. I think you need a higher low to make it blue, but I like this trade, and there's plenty of room back to the EMA, and even to these highs, I think, in case, it's going to turn back down on you at these highs. So yeah, so you got 2 points there easy. So I like that trade, but I'm still going to mark it green because you're almost always better off to wait on the higher low. The problem is you don't always get one. Just like here, look at that thing go, and you don't get a higher low. Your higher low is way up here, and there's no setup on it, and if you could catch that move all the way back to the top, that's a great move. So anyway, um, it is what it is. Then of course we run straight up. Uh, in my opinion, this is a separate channel because you get a close outside and a new high here, and you're working down here. Um, you don't really get a close outside and a new low, but sometimes you don't. It's just a little quick swing back to the EMA, and then boom, off it goes again. And this is a really strong move up, and you get a little failed breakout. It does get a close outside and a new high, but again, I think you need a lower high. Because it may push up and try to make another high since this is such a strong move, and that's exactly what happens. It tries to push up and make another high. I don't think you want to go long right here. Now, you could argue there's 3 attempts to go lower there and a semi-decent bar to go long on. There's also a second entry here. Notice first entry, second entry. But I think just making a new low is not good enough. I think you need to see like a triple test like you get right here. You can see there's a triple test there, and you're making a higher low each time too. That's a little bit telling. So, you know, you might go long right there. I'll give it a green, but you're just looking for a scalp because it's probably going to fail and make your hope is a lower high, and then it's going to turn down and give you a good setup. It actually doesn't. It makes another new high. But I don't think that signal bar is good enough. Maybe you can argue you get a green right there and you wait on a lower high, but you don't get the lower high. Like we didn't get many at all today, so you'll see a bunch of these greens. And then we're chopping lower sideways here again. You get a failed breakout here, and you can argue that's 2 legs up. I gave it green, but again, you're better off to catch something inside or a lower high. Same thing here, failed breakout right off the midline. But you need a higher low, and that doesn't come to a way up here. And then you don't have much room left, so I gave both of those a green. Again, I like them both, but this one I like better than this one because I talk about this all the time. These failed breakouts like this, they tend to be important highs and lows, sometimes for the whole day, but at least for the moment. And you can see that's a pretty good move up to this new high. So that would have been an important low at that point. And I like those because you can get some really good moves. Now this is a first entry, second entry, and you do have a little trend back with a close outside and new low. And we tested that midline again, it holds. So that's a second entry long, a nice signal bar. If it breaks above that, the key is do you have enough room? And it's real close, so I marked it green. But you probably could have got in there. Notice that it's only like 5 ticks, so you need 6. So, but this broke higher and ticked back, so you could have actually got a little better entry there and gave yourself enough room. It didn't end up mattering anyway, but you want to make sure you got enough room in case it does matter. And you can see it held up there momentarily, and that's the concern, is that it may turn back. It may hold permanently and turn back down, but it doesn't. It gives away. And so give yourself room to get out if you take that trade. And then it runs up, and we made a new high, and then we're working down. 2 swings up, but you can't go short there, and you can't go long there. And so now we're breaking out again. This one is tempting, but you got resistance right across there. You just can't go long there. And see, it comes back again, but it only gives you a double test of it. This is a second entry long, but if you draw your trend channel there, you don't have well, you could argue there's a close outside and a new low, and it is a second entry, but most of these breakouts are going to fail, so you're better off just to sit tight and wait on a failure and see if you get a lower high and a short. And guess what? This time you finally do get a lower high. You make a double top there. That one may be 1 tick higher. I can't remember, but it doesn't matter. You can treat it just the same. 89.75. Yeah, it's a double top. And so in a big bearish bar, I like going short on that one. And look at it go. And you probably catch another runner here. And those failed breakouts, that gives you another important high, not a low this time, a high. And look at that move down. And you might be able to get most or all of that move. And you can see, I mean, that's about 20 points down to there. I mean, you probably won't get it all, but if you just get half of it, that's easy 10 or 12 points. And it reverses here. You do get a break and a few swings down, but there's no setup there. You need a higher low, and that doesn't come to way up here. And then you got to close outside in a new high, and then you get a lower high here, which I like taking that one. And you get another move down to a new low. Again, you get a close outside and a new low there. That's a third entry though, but what happens is you get that close outside and you get a close outside and a new low all in one. You're better off to wait on the higher low here for certain on this one, but that's pretty bullish, and you could enter that on that engulfing bar if you're. I talk about this all the time. Most of you should leave engulfing bars alone, but if you're a really good trader and you understand them and you're making money, maybe you trade that one. And you might enter that on the engulfing bar, and it gives you a little more room. It doesn't end up mattering because this thing runs all the way back to the top, to the high again. That's another thing. This is a higher low than the previous one. So there's a good chance you're going to at least attempt to make another measured leg. And you see that puts you back to the high, and that's exactly where we went. So that would have been a nice one to catch. There is a higher low, but the signal bar is no good. And then you do get another chance here. Notice you're working down, and you get a higher low, and you turn down again. That's just a first entry, but you can argue maybe that you got a double bottom there. It actually goes a little bit lower, but I still think you could treat that as a double bottom. It just looks a little sideways to me. I mean, again, it's one you might argue is green. I would sit tight. And there's just nothing else here all the way up. And we do get a lower high here. Unfortunately, you don't get a signal bar you can trade, and you can't enter that on the engulfing bar. Runs down. You do get a close outside and a higher low, but I don't think that, does that close in its upper 1/3? I don't think so. I think with that 2-bar matching high and a lot of red body there, and then this big stem, I think you just have to sit tight on that one. And it does run up. I think that's too neutral to use. It's a second entry, and we do make a new high. Again, it doesn't quite close in the lower 1/3, even though it's a triple test. And then we test it again, but again, no signal bar. But lo and behold, this time we get another test, and now you got a quadruple, maybe a 1, 2, 3, 4, at least a quadruple, maybe tested it 5 times. And I think you can argue that's a second entry short. It's at the top of the range, and we've tested it multiple times. I like going short there. And you probably get a runner here. It gets a nice move down, then you get a first entry and another second entry. Lower high second entry right here, and it's a relatively small bar, 5 ticks. Very low risk. Definitely go short there. As long as you got room to get out. There's a triple bottom down here. So you definitely need room to get out. But I think you're fine going short there. And it does make a new low, but you don't have a close outside yet. And notice it makes 2 legs up and gives you a second entry and another nice bar with a lower high. I like going short there again. And that runs off into the 2:30 hour. And so this was pretty good late afternoon. There's several setups here that were pretty good. And there's a bunch of green ones all in there. Some of them we talked about I liked better than others. You just got to be careful with those green ones because they're a little risky. So there it is. Big range day. Not a lot of movement really from one end to the other. It's 20-point range. Technically from the failure low to the failure high, it's a little more than 20 points. But for the most part, it's a 20-point range. Overall, it's about 30, a little over 30 points. So, not the worst trading day. Certainly not the best, but certainly not the worst either. So, anyway, hope you had a good trading day today. We'll be back again to do it tomorrow, and tomorrow is Wednesday. So, We're getting towards the latter part of the week, but anyway, I hope you had a good trading day. We'll be back again to do it tomorrow. I'm done for today. This is Matt with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next time.